Originally, Patrick Hickey was going to speak, and then he had a last-minute family conflict. Instead, he's sending he sent in his stead Carlos Miranda of the Workers' Rights Center. Okay, now this is based in Madison, but has a project here in Beloit. It's a community center dedicated to educating and advocating for worker justice. It's committed to empowering workers. It trains people in the community as advocates to assist in resolving workplace problems. And I love this. It seeks to affirm the dignity of work and the dignity and respect that should be afforded to all who work. Okay, he's the lead organizer. He heads up the Beloit project. And as I understand it, it was started with other community organizations in the area and student interns from Beloit College. He's been with the Workers' Rights Center for 7 years. He's bilingual, and he graduated from high school in Janesville. So, give a big hand to Carlos.
I just wanted to give a quick disclaimer. One, I'm deathly afraid of public speaking. I hear about this issue though, so I wanted to be sure to talk to folks in Janesville. And two, my voice is giving out, so I might be coughing and unable to speak for minutes at a time. So I prefer questions too. A little bit more background. Yes, I am from Janesville. My family works for General Motors, and when they shut the plant down in Van Nuys, California, after a quick struggle, we finally got the opportunity to go to either San Antonio, Texas, or Janesville, Wisconsin. And he just happened to know another welder that was coming to Janesville, so that's how we ended up here. Still trying to get over the weather. That was 98, 97. What else? Graduated from Craig High School, went to UW Rock County, and transferred to UW Madison, where I graduated in 2007. And when I graduated, nobody told me that I would be losing my job as a student hourly. And I just happened to know somebody who was leaving the Workers' Center and was able to get on board, and I've been there ever since. Workers' Center, we are a nonprofit in Madison, Wisconsin. We assist workers that are having problems at the workplace. There's wage theft, there's discrimination, there's workers' compensation, workers getting injured at the workplace, and then bad employers not paying workers for their medical bills and transportation and such. And we even see cases where employers threaten workers with calling immigration or terminating their job if they report these things. Protected concerted activity or union organizing is another major issue that we see. And see, this is where I start freaking out when people are looking at me. I got a list of things that I'm supposed to talk about. That's the history. By far the biggest issue that we see is wage theft. Do folks know what wage theft is?
Yes.
Yeah? Can you give me an example of wage theft?
It's when they make you work overtime and they don't pay you for it, or they don't pay you for your lunch.
Yep. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Essentially not getting paid, not paying workers for the hours worked or at the rate that was promised. We have several workers that come in and get checks that bounced. Workers not being paid minimum wage. Folks know minimum wage here, right? What's minimum wage?
$7.25.
$7.25. Not being paid overtime. Folks know what overtime is? What's overtime?
Over 40 hours.
Time and a half over 40 hours. What else? We mentioned lunch breaks, right? So workers are automatically deducted 30 minutes from their check, whether or not they took their lunch. It's not 30 consecutive minutes, and they still deduct money from their accounts. There's also donning and doffing, which is when employers require workers to be at the work site by a particular time and are told to put on their uniform, their personal protective equipment, and until they do that, they're not allowed to clock in. Briefly, at the end of the shift, first thing they're supposed to do is clock out and then take off their personal protective equipment, change their uniform, in some cases wash their personal protective equipment or their tools, and dry it, put it away, and then they can leave. So that's a big example. You had a question?
That's the one I was going to ask about.
Okay. How much time do I have?
Take 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Illegal deductions from paychecks. And not only are they deducting things for like broken dishes, or there's in restaurants we see a lot of dining and dashing where clients don't pay for their food and the employers try charging the workers for that. Yeah, Wage Select. It's huge. We've seen a lot of workers from Rock County, specifically Beloit, and we've been able to secure some funding to be doing satellite hours in Beloit. We're also doing trainings on health and safety. We got a grant from Motion to do that. Actually, today did a 2-hour training, and then we have our satellite hours twice a month on the first Wednesday of the month and the second Wednesday. The State Land University Council has been kind enough to give us a space free of charge, and I have more information with me that I can give to you all. We do trainings in English and Spanish and Hmong. Any questions? Are you just gonna keep staring at me? And then, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to read this. This is from the director. There's a plan in the works led by Wisconsin Jobs to get an advisory referendum on the ballots in counties all over the state, asking people who want to raise the state minimum wage. The purpose is to build momentum and energy around the issues and put pressure on legislators to take action. Vermont just voted to go up $10.50 an hour. Minnesota just voted to increase their minimum wage to $9.50 an hour by 2016. Illinois and Michigan are also discussing the increases. And minimum wage is one of the major issues. There's being terminated without just cause. A lot of workers are upset that they get terminated from one day to the next. But another major issue that we see is not being able to survive on $7.25. It's just no way that a family can be able to provide for their families, even for themselves, on a minimum wage. And so there are workers that are taking action, collective action, to better their working conditions to increase that. Actually, tomorrow, Thursday, there will be another round of strikes in Madison. I'm not sure about Janesville or Beloit, but in Madison, starting at 7, there will be actions at particular work sites. If you have questions, we can talk afterwards too.
If you want to elaborate any more on worker organizing efforts, I don't know how much you could say, but I'm curious.
Major issue that we know is, we have a right to collective action at the workplace without retaliation. Under the National Labor Relations Act, we have seen workers that take action in the workplace to try to better the working conditions. We had, for example, a group of housekeepers from a hotel who one day during their lunch break had gotten together to talk about some of the mean things that a bad supervisor was doing. Some worker chimed up and claimed that she was most upset because the mean supervisor, it was actually a bad word, but the mean supervisor had fired a lady that had been there a while because she thought she was too old, and brought in her son-in-law. And that's what she was upset about, was that the son-in-law was not doing enough or the same amount of work or the same quality of work, so therefore they all had to work harder. 2 other workers chimed up and explained that they were upset because that same son-in-law, they had thought that he'd been stealing tips. They noticed that the regular hotel clients had been leaving about half of what they typically left. And so they took it upon themselves to hide in the closet to see if somebody was stealing their tips, and sure enough, they were. The discussion centered around what to do, what actions to take. At the end, we decided to do a petition and deliver it the following workday to the owners who lived at that hotel. These were Spanish-speaking workers. One of them felt comfortable enough to be able to translate and put something together, and the plan was to deliver it to the employers the following workday. Breakout was over, they had to go back to work, eventually home, and on Monday when they showed back up to work, the supervisor came and told them that she knew about the plan and that she demanded that each worker come into her office or they would be fired. First worker came in and the boss said, "Sign this or you're fired." The worker, afraid to lose her job, not being able to provide for her family, signed it. And what do you think the supervisor did? Fired her anyways. She was upset, left, but was sure to inform the other workers what had just happened. The other worker came in, refused to sign because she knew that she'd be fired, and the supervisor said, "I'm firing you anyways." This happened to 7 or 8 workers, and we assisted some of them to request their personnel records and to contact the employer to see what had happened. The employer admitted in the personnel file that the reason she had terminated these workers was because they were planning to go on strike when the hotel was at its busiest to make them look like fools, and therefore they've lost confidence in them, and that's why they terminated them. And so that is an example of protected concerted activity. And it's what the workers did to be able to file a charge against the employer with the National Labor Relations Board. Mind you, they were not forming a union, they were merely taking protected concerted activity. And I just want to say that's the basis, that's what we like to spread the word to other workers, that you do have a right to protected concerted activity, which is the basis for the actions that are going to be taken on tomorrow. You have a right. Go ahead.
How much, this is a local hotel, right? How much information are you allowed or do you put out about these kind of practices in local businesses? Because I think that some people might like to know, you know, about, because if it's a nice hotel, nice restaurant, you know what I mean? There are other things that reasons why you might not want to go there now. And to let people know that you don't want to go there because of their behavior.
Right.
So how much information is given out about what who these people are?
The bad employers?
Yes.
As much as we can. We at the Worker Center leave it up to the worker to decide whether or not to go public, to inform our community about the practices that are happening here, to inform consumers about what businesses to support and which ones not to. Over the past couple of years, specifically in restaurants, we don't necessarily depend on complaints with governmental agencies. They're not very effective. We try our best to work with the agencies, but we've come to learn that direct action is what counts, it's what works. And so we make it a point to, when the worker decides, go public and do demonstrations of the bad employers, restaurants or businesses. You know, community members have asked us, okay, you've told us where not to go over the years, you know, which restaurants to boycott or where to inform the employer that they need to change their practices before we go back. And they would ask us, where should we go? You know, who are the good employers out there? They can't all be bad. And honestly, we didn't know. We had no idea. It wasn't something that we were actively working on. And so one of the things we decided to do starting 2 years ago was a dining guide. It's called the Just Dining Guide. And what we do is we ask, we look in our community in Madison, Wisconsin, focus on downtown because we don't have the resources to do the entire city of Madison. And we look to see who are those employers that are not just meeting the minimum requirements. Who are those employers that are going above and beyond, offering paid sick days, for example, which they don't have to do unless they're unionized, probably. Who doesn't start at $7.25? Who starts at $8.25 or higher? Who are those employers that are offering benefits, health care to their employees, even their part-time employees? And so I have some of those with me as well, that you can take with you. I'd love to see something like that happen in Janesville. And so, like I said, we have funding to do satellite office hours in Beloit, but we meet with workers at Heifer Library, you know, once in a while. And we'd love to, in this summer, meet with people that are interested in doing something more collectively or following the model that we used in Madison here in Janesville. I know there are good employers in Janesville, there are bad employers, and it's the bad employers that are undercutting the good employers. We can't permit that to happen. So, did I answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
I'm going to ask a question, and then if you want, we can move on. And the idea is, we normally do is have both speakers speak, and then open it up and ask questions whomever people want to ask. I'm just curious, so what is a worker's right if they're experiencing wage theft? I mean, what are they supposed to do about it? I mean, is there any mechanism? And you can't call the police and say my employer is within the hour. What can you do?
We've had workers actually call the police, and that's one thing that's good. The important thing is to document what it is that you feel you're not being paid accurately. We need to give the employers an opportunity to respond, and we try to assist with that, make sure that it's accurate, that this allegation is accurate. Collect the proof, because a lot of times that's what counts. If you claim you worked over 40 hours, specifically what days, how many hours, and then compare that to what you got paid. And once we know the difference, add that up for the employer, send it to them, either certified mail or call the employer, go in person to confront the employer about their wages, and then give them an opportunity to resolve the issue. If they don't feel that's working, you can file a complaint with the Department of Workforce Development or the Department Department of Labor, but not a state or federal agency. Actually, the state agency is still pretty good. So, but again, we focus on following that protocol just so that there is a history precedent that there was an issue there. But if we feel that the employers are intentionally prolonging the process, we inform the community and see what they want to do about it. And that usually is very effective.
Okay, well,